The exact moment my life shattered, the afternoon sun was blazing through the windshield of my car, blinding me just long enough to miss the sudden swerve of the truck ahead, an error in judgment that left my younger brother paralyzed and me carrying a crushing weight of guilt that no physical exercise could ever lift. If you believe in kindness, forgiveness, hope, and second chances, please take a moment right now to like, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel, as welcoming you into our family helps us continue sharing powerful stories that heal hearts and bring light to those walking through their heaviest seasons. For 2 long years after that terrible afternoon, my routine became a rigid shelter against the crushing storm of my own mind. Every afternoon, when the midday sun flooded the glass walls of the local fitness center, I would train until my muscles burned, attempting to replace the emotional pain with physical exhaustion. I kept my eyes fixed firmly on the polished wood floor, avoiding eye contact with the regular members, believing that someone who had caused so much suffering had no right to share in light-hearted human connection. Yet, despite my best efforts to remain entirely invisible, I could not help noticing Maeve, a woman whose radiant presence seemed to light up the sunlit weight room every single day. She moved with an effortless grace and quiet strength that I deeply admired from afar, always working out near the bright glass bay windows, entirely oblivious, or so I thought, to the broken man who secretly viewed her as a beacon of life and resilience. To me, Maeve represented everything I believed I had permanently lost, which was joy, purpose, and an unburdened spirit. While I dragged myself through sets with heavy shoulders and a downcast gaze, she approached her workouts with a quiet, focused passion that inspired everyone around her. I spent months convincing myself that a person like her, so vibrant and full of unshakable confidence, lived in a world completely separate from mine, one untouched by sorrow or regret. I was content to keep my crush a distant secret, satisfied merely to exist in the same sunlit space as her for an hour each afternoon, using her strength as a silent anchor while I struggled to piece together my own shattered sense of self-worth. The quiet boundary I had built around myself vanished completely on a bright Tuesday afternoon when the gym was filled with the warm, golden glow of the peak daylight hours. I was near the squat racks, minding my own business and focusing on my breathing, when Maeve finished loading a heavy barbell and turned directly toward me. She caught my eye, offered a warm, encouraging smile, and asked if I would mind spotting her for a heavy set of squats. My heart pounded against my ribs like a trapped bird, a sudden wave of anxious self-doubt washing over me as I realized that the woman I had admired from a distance for months was actually speaking to me. I nodded silently, afraid that if I opened my mouth my voice would betray my intense nervousness, and stepped up to the wooden platform behind her. I positioned myself a cautious distance away, placing my feet wide and keeping my hands hovering far back, utterly terrified of overstepping her personal boundaries or making her uncomfortable in any way. Seeing my extreme hesitancy in the reflection of the glass window, Maeve paused before starting her repetition, turned her head slightly with a subtle smirk on her lips, and gently remarked that I could come closer if I was actually going to keep her safe. The simple request carried an unexpected warmth that immediately dissolved the sharp tension in my chest, forcing me to take a step forward into her space. As I braced my hands near her waist to guide her through the heavy lift, I noticed for the first time a long, faded surgical scar running down the side of her shoulder, a distinct mark of past trauma that I had never noticed from afar. In that brief, shared moment of intense focus as she completed the set, something shifted profoundly between us. When she finished and safely racked the heavy metal bar, she turned around, her breathing slightly heavy, and looked into my eyes with a depth of understanding that chilled me to my core. She did not walk away or offer a generic word of thanks. Instead, she leaned against the rack, wiped her brow in the streaming afternoon sunlight, and quietly admitted that she had noticed me watching the floor for months, carrying a heaviness that no amount of iron could ever fix. Her words were not spoken with judgment, but with a profound, compassionate awareness that stripped away my protective defenses in an instant, making me realize that my hidden pain had been completely visible to her all along. Rather than letting me retreat back into my comfortable isolation, Maeve suggested we walk out into the bright afternoon sun to grab a drink at the open-air juice bar across the street. Sitting together on the sun-drenched patio, wrapped in the warm breeze of the clear daylight, the barriers I had carefully constructed over 2 painful years began to crumble. Maeve shared the story behind the scar on her shoulder, explaining how a catastrophic collision during her collegiate athletic career had not only destroyed her body, but had also tragically taken the life of her older sister, who was sitting in the passenger seat beside her. Hearing her articulate the exact same grief, self-blame, and overwhelming regret that had haunted my every waking thought left me speechlessly staring at her, realized that the woman I thought was untouchable had walked through the exact same valley of shadow. Maeve explained that for a long time, she had punished herself by staying emotionally distant from everyone, believing that living a guarded, joyless life was the only fair punishment for surviving when someone she loved had suffered. She told me that her gentle remark back at the squat rack was not just about the exercise, but was a quiet invitation for me to stop standing in the back corners of my own existence, holding myself at a distance from the warmth of human connection. Hearing her speak those words under the bright blue sky felt like a cool rainfall on a parched field, forcing me to confront the painful truth that my deep isolation was not honoring my brother, but was merely prolonging the tragedy for both of us. Moved by her unbelievable honesty and bravery, I found myself opening up about my brother Caleb, describing the sunny morning of our accident, the endless physical therapy sessions, and the unbearable burden of seeing him navigate life in a wheelchair while I walked unhindered. Maeve listened to every word without interruption, her calm presence offering a safe space where I could finally voice the deep guilt I had kept buried inside my heart. She gently reminded me that holding on to self-hatred would never heal my brother's legs, nor would it rebuild the relationship we had before the crash, urging me to realize that true strength was not found in suffering alone, but in having the courage to step closer to the people who truly care about us. Inspired by Maeve's unwavering courage, I made a choice that very afternoon to stop running from my past and face the emotional wall I had built between myself and my family. After leaving the cafe, I drove straight to my family's house in the bright daylight, finding my brother Caleb sitting on the back porch, enjoying the afternoon warmth while reading a book. For the first time in 2 years, I did not look at him with eyes full of pity or lingering guilt. Instead, I sat beside him in the sunlight, looked him dead in the eyes, and broke down in tears, asking him to forgive me for the accident that had altered his life and for emotionally pulling away from him ever since. Caleb looked at me with a profound, peaceful smile, reached out, and pulled me into a tight embrace, telling me that he had forgiven me the very day the accident happened. He explained that the hardest part of his recovery had not been learning to navigate the world in a wheelchair, but watching his beloved brother slowly retreat into a shell of guilt and self-loathing, begging me to realize that his life was far from over and that he needed his brother back completely. The weight that had crushed my chest for 2 long years shattered into 1,000 harmless pieces right there on the sunny porch, replaced by a deep sense of peace and a renewed desire to embrace every single moment of life moving forward. In the weeks that followed, my daily visits to the gym transformed from a painful penalty into a joyful celebration of movement, strength, and genuine fellowship. I began arriving at the facility with my head held high, greeting the people around me, and working out alongside Maeve under the bright sky that filled the glass building with radiant warmth. We became inseparable training partners, supporting each other through every lift, every challenge, and every personal milestone, building a bond that was rooted in mutual healing, deep respect, and an unshakable belief in the beauty of second chances. One afternoon, as the daylight washed over the gym in brilliant gold, Maeve loaded the heavy barbell once again for her final set of squats and motioned for me to come over. I stepped up onto the wooden platform behind her, positioning myself close, clear, and confident, ready to support her with absolute certainty. She looked up at my reflection in the bright glass window, saw the light back in my eyes, and offered a gentle, genuine smile that filled my heart with an overwhelming sense of gratitude and hope. I leaned down slightly and whispered that I was right there with her, no longer standing far behind in the shadows, but standing close enough to face whatever life brought our way together. Our journeys through life often present us with heavy burdens of guilt, regret, and self-doubt, making us feel as though we must isolate ourselves from the very warmth and connection that can heal us. Yet, when we find the courage to forgive ourselves, open our hearts to others, and step forward into the light of truth, we discover that love, compassion, and second chances are always waiting to welcome us home. Before we bring this journey to its final conclusion, please take a moment to leave a meaningful comment below sharing your thoughts on the power of forgiveness, healing, and stepping closer to those who need our support today. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, leave a meaningful comment, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to our channel so you never miss another emotional journey. Standing on that sunlit platform beside Maeve, watching the bright afternoon light reflect off the glass, I finally understood that our past mistakes do not define our future, and that no matter how deep the darkness of our guilt may seem, there is always enough light waiting in the day to guide us toward healing, love, and a fresh beginning.